It was a calm and peaceful night in Tehran, the capital of Iran. The warm air carried the smell of roasted corn from street vendors. Families were walking along the sidewalks. Children laughed as they played near shops. Some people sat in small cafes, sipping tea and talking quietly. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But far away from the busy streets, deep in the Iranian desert, something secret was happening. Hidden behind fences and security cameras was a large new building. Its roof was flat, its walls thick. Trucks went in and out. The workers wore special suits. This place didn't look like a normal factory. It looked like a military site. Several countries had noticed it, especially Israel. From space, Israel's spy satellites zoomed in. They took photos, captured signals, and listened to radio chatter. Israel's intelligence officers, known as Mossad, were watching closely. They believed Iran was using the building to work on a nuclear weapon. In a highly secure room in Tel Aviv, Israel's top military and government leaders sat around a long table. The walls were covered in screens showing maps, satellite footage, and live reports. The room was silent except for the steady voice of a man pointing to the screen. "This is the site," he said. "We believe the uranium is being enriched here, faster than before. If they complete this phase, they will be weeks away from building a bomb." The Prime Minister leaned forward. "Are we sure?" "Yes," the intelligence officer replied firmly. 100%. A general spoke next. "We have prepared a strike plan. Our jets will fly low, under radar. The operation will take less than 10 minutes. We've trained for this exact target." Some leaders in the room hesitated. What if Iran hits back? What about Hezbollah in the north? What if American troops in Iraq are attacked? The Prime Minister stayed silent for a moment. Then he stood up. "If we wait, the danger will grow. If they get the bomb, we may not have a second chance. We must stop them now." The room fell silent again. The decision was made. That evening, Israeli fighter pilots were called to a hidden airbase in the Negev desert. These were not ordinary pilots. They were the best, trained for secret missions, ready to fly into enemy airspace and return alive. One of the pilots was named Captain Eli. He was only 31 but had already flown in several operations. He looked calm as he suited up. His co-pilot handed him a folded note from home, a drawing from his daughter. He smiled, then folded it into his flight jacket. They climbed into their F-35 jets, machines built for speed and stealth. The engine started with a deep rumble. One by one, the jets rolled onto the runway and vanished into the night sky. The formation flew low over the sea, avoiding radar. Israeli Navy ships in the Mediterranean helped guide them. Their route was carefully planned. They passed through airspace where radar was weak, using advanced systems to avoid detection. Inside Iran, no one suspected what was coming. The night went on like usual. Radios played music. Drivers waited at traffic lights. Soldiers in guard towers smoked cigarettes and looked at the stars. But high above them, something dark was moving, fast and silent. The Israeli jets crossed into Iranian airspace just after midnight. No warning. No sound. Only the quiet hum of jet engines cutting through the sky. Back in Tehran, the military's early warning system suddenly blinked. A radar operator stared at the screen, confused. Something was flying toward a secure zone, fast. He hit the alarm button. Red lights flashed. Across bases. Sirens wailed. Anti-air units scrambled to get ready. But the jets were already too close. They had come in too fast, too low. At 12:41 a.m., the first bomb dropped. It hit the center of the suspected nuclear site. A huge fireball lit up the night. The ground shook for miles. Seconds later, more bombs followed, all hitting with deadly precision. The building collapsed in flames. The nearby power grid failed. Darkness spread across the desert. People in nearby villages woke up screaming. Windows shattered. Some thought it was an earthquake. Others looked up and saw flashes in the sky. They knew something terrible had happened. Iran's military tried to respond. Anti-aircraft guns fired into the sky. Surface-to-air missiles were launched. But the jets had already turned back, flying out of range. Only one jet lagged behind, hit by ground fire. It lost fuel and crashed far from the target zone. The pilot was Captain Eli. His last radio message was brief: engines failing. I'm going down. Tell my daughter I'm proud. His signal went silent. The other jets made it home safely. At the Israeli airbase, there were no cheers, just quiet nods and tired faces. They had hit the target. But they knew what might come next. The storm had begun. The night was no longer quiet. All across Iran, sirens were screaming. Red warning lights flashed in military bases. Radio messages flew between commanders. Something had struck deep in the desert, and now smoke was rising high into the sky. Back at the site, the damage was enormous. The building, once strong and guarded, was now a pile of burning steel and dust. Huge holes were torn into the ground. Flames shot into the air, lighting up the desert like a second sun. The heat could be felt from hundreds of meters away. Soldiers nearby were injured, some buried in rubble, others crawling through smoke to find their weapons. Rescue teams were sent at once, but they struggled to reach the site. The roads were blocked by debris, and the power was out. Radio towers had fallen. Nobody knew how many had died. Nobody knew what else was coming. In Tehran, Iranian leaders were called out of bed. Within minutes, they were sitting in the emergency war room. One officer shouted, "It's Israel. Their jets did this." Another added, "They flew under our radar. They used stealth planes." This was a well-planned attack. Iran's supreme leader was quiet at first, watching the screen. Then he spoke calmly, "We will respond. But not with noise, with power." Outside, the people of Tehran were confused and afraid. Some had seen the flash from far away. Others had heard the news on social media. "We are under attack," one man shouted in a crowded street. Mothers held their children tightly. Shops closed early. Many people ran to gas stations, banks, and supermarkets, afraid that war had begun. At the same time, inside the Israeli jets flying home, the pilots remained focused. They had been trained not to feel during missions, only to complete them. The squad leader spoke through his headset. "Target destroyed. All units heading south. Stay low, stay sharp." Most jets were unharmed. Their stealth systems had worked perfectly. But one jet, Captain Eli's, had been hit just after the final strike. An Iranian missile exploded near his right wing. Smoke filled the cockpit. The jet lost power fast. He tried to guide it toward the desert, away from towns. "Base, this is Alpha 4, Eli said calmly over the radio. "I've taken a hit. Engine failure. I'm going down." "Repeat, I'm going down." The others heard his voice. Then, silence. Captain Eli's jet disappeared from radar. The Israeli airbase tried to reconnect, but no signal came back. A rescue mission was considered, but it was too dangerous. Sending another team into Iranian airspace could lead to war. They had no choice but to wait and hope. Back in Iran, the military was on high alert. Anti-air systems now scanned every inch of the sky. Jets were scrambled. Troops were placed near sensitive areas like oil fields, power plants, and government buildings. Iran feared this was just the beginning. At the bomb site, rescue teams worked through the night. They pulled survivors from the rubble. Some were barely alive. Others, sadly, were not. Among the wreckage, engineers tried to save whatever documents and hard drives they could find. Some feared that the nuclear program had suffered a serious blow. Others whispered that a secret part of the site had survived deep underground. Iranian state television soon showed pictures of the damage. Reporters used strong words: cowardly attack, Zionist aggression, act of war. Crowds gathered in the streets, shouting, "Death to Israel," and "Revenge! Revenge!" Meanwhile, the Israeli government remained silent. They neither confirmed nor denied the operation. Reporters in Tel Aviv asked questions, but the military gave no answers. Only one official, speaking off record, said Israel will never allow its enemies to build weapons that can destroy it. Across the world, leaders woke up to breaking news. US intelligence confirmed that Israeli jets had likely struck the Iranian site. The White House quickly released a statement calling for calm. "The situation is serious," said the American president. "But we urge both sides to avoid further violence." In Russia, officials condemned the attack. China did the same. The United Nations called an emergency meeting. Countries in the Middle East took sides. Some quietly supported Israel, others backed Iran. The region felt tense, as if it were holding its breath. Back in Israel, the returning pilots were welcomed with silence. Not cheers, not music, only quiet handshakes and tired eyes. The mission had succeeded. The target was destroyed. But the missing jet weighed heavily on everyone. Captain Eli's family was waiting in their home. His wife held their young daughter on her lap, watching the news. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She just stared at the screen, holding on to hope. The next morning, Israel's prime minister met with his security team. "We acted to protect our people," he said. "We struck a threat before it could grow. But we must prepare for what comes next." And in Iran, the supreme leader sat in prayer. Then he stood, looked out the window at the dark sky, and said, "We will answer, not with words, but with action." The fire in the sky had ended. But the fire in the hearts of both nations had just begun. By sunrise, the whole world knew what had happened. News channels across every continent interrupted their programs with the headline, "Breaking: Israel bombs suspected nuclear site in Iran." Video clips showed burning buildings, rising smoke, and flashing lights in the desert. In the background, you could hear people screaming and sirens wailing. The images shocked viewers everywhere. In Iran, the mood was tense and angry. The people had woken to destruction and fear. Crowds filled the streets in Tehran and other major cities. Many carried signs with strong words like "We will avenge this" and "Israel must pay." Others cried as they watched the news. Some had lost family members who worked at the site. Others simply feared what would come next. Iran's government acted quickly. The supreme leader gave a powerful speech on national television. "Last night," he said, "we were attacked without warning. This was not just an attack on a building. It was an attack on our honor, our people, and our right to defend ourselves. Israel will regret this act of war." The military was placed on full alert. Fighter jets circled the skies. Missiles were loaded and moved to new locations. Iran's Revolutionary Guard, the most powerful part of its military, was told to prepare for immediate retaliation. Inside military bases, commanders studied maps and watched Israeli news. They discussed hitting Israeli army bases or airports. Some even spoke of using Hezbollah, a powerful militia group based in Lebanon, to launch attacks from the north. But others warned, "If we attack too soon, we may start a full war." "We are already at war," one officer replied. "We must answer, or the world will see us as weak." Back in Israel, the situation was also tense. While the government stayed quiet in public, behind closed doors they were preparing for the worst. The army was placed on high alert. Reservists were called back into service. Bomb shelters were checked and opened. Schools in some northern towns were closed as a safety measure. The Prime Minister met again with the Security Council. "We must stay ready. Iran will strike back. The question is when and where. We must be one step ahead." Israeli citizens were also on edge. Some supported the attack, believing it had stopped a great danger. If we didn't strike, said one shop owner in Tel Aviv, Iran would have built a bomb. They've said many times they want to destroy us. Others were worried. This might bring war to our doorstep, said a woman with her 2 children at a supermarket. We're strong, yes. But at what cost? And then there was Captain Eli. His name was not yet made public, but his absence was deeply felt by his squad. The pilots who flew with him knew the chances of survival were slim. His plane had gone down in Iranian territory, in the dark, with no contact since. Back at his home, his wife sat near the window. Their daughter, just 5 years old, asked, "When is Daddy coming back?" Her mother could not answer. She just hugged her tighter and whispered, "He's a hero." The Israeli Air Force launched search drones near the border, hoping to catch a signal or image. But the deeper truth was clear: if Eli was still alive, he was alone, somewhere in the desert, and every second made his rescue harder. Elsewhere, countries around the world rushed to respond. In the United Nations, an emergency meeting was called. The Iranian ambassador raised his voice: this was a criminal act by a reckless regime. We demand punishment, and we demand justice. The Israeli ambassador answered firmly: we acted in self-defense. Iran's secret nuclear activity was a danger to peace in the entire region. Other countries tried to stay neutral. The US urged both sides to stop further attacks. We support Israel's right to defend itself, the American president said. But we also call for restraint and de-escalation. Russia, China, and several European countries expressed concern. They feared this could lead to a wider war across the Middle East. Some leaders tried to mediate. Secret talks were held in Oman and Qatar. Behind closed doors, diplomats tried to calm both nations. "You've sent your message," one said to Iran. "But if you hit back now, things could spiral out of control." But Iran was not interested in quiet talks, not yet. 2 days after the strike, rockets were fired from southern Lebanon into northern Israel. Israel responded by bombing Hezbollah bases. It was not clear if this was the beginning of a coordinated Iranian attack, or just a warning. Tension spread fast. People in cities across both countries stocked up on food and water. Hospitals checked their emergency systems. Oil prices went up. Airlines cancelled flights across the region. The world held its breath. And in a hidden place in the Iranian desert, a group of villagers found something strange: the wreckage of a jet. It was broken, half buried in the sand. Not far from it, they saw footprints. One boy ran home to tell his father. The father, a former soldier, picked up a pair of binoculars and scanned the hills. "He's alive," the man said softly. "And he's out there."